Well, I mean, we've seen dramatic developments here. One of the interesting things about BRICS is the West just doesn't understand it at all. And I'm shocked. I deal with some very intelligent people who specialize in monitoring global energy security. In order to do that, you have to, have your finger on the pulse of geopolitics around the world. But this Russian conflict has, again, when you create clones, don't be surprised when they behave like clones. Um, we have across, all of journalism, academia, um, you know, think tanks. There's a bias, a strong, heavy bias against Russia and anything Russia, so strong that we are incapable of thinking rationally about Russia. That we turn Russia into a bunch of simple cartoon characters, you know. Uh, Boris and Natasha from Bullwinkle, Spy versus Spy from Mad Magazine. And we actually believe that that's the way it is. We demonize Vladimir Putin, call him a brutal dictator. But when you say that, you forget the fact that this man governs not by dictating, but by listening, by absorbing, by asking questions, by absorbing, by coming up with consensus driven solutions that are implementable. This is why Russia has been such a success for the last 25 years, not because Vladimir Putin is dictating everything, but because that man travels all over Russia and listens to people, listens to his governors, listens to the mayors, listens to the local economic planners, asks intelligent questions, demands intelligent answers, and then formulates sound policy that took Russia out of the hell that the West put Russia in the 1990s to where Russia is today. This is the thing. These people don't know how to view BRICS. I mean, I tried to make BRICS. I tried to say, I said, in order to understand what's going to happen in Kazan in October, you have to first go to the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum, because that literally was a massive BRICS ministerial. That's where Russia brought everybody together and began conditioning the world for the dramatic changes that are going to take place. It would have been impossible to have these changes except for the war. If Russia hadn't gone in to Ukraine and the West hadn't overreacted and sanctioned Russia and create the conditions for the divorce of Russia from the West, if the West hadn't pressured, taken advantage of the Ukrainian conflict to say, hey, that's going to be Taiwan if we don't stop it, and pressure China and force China to say, how do we deal with this? If we didn't try to strong arm India into, going against Russia, a natural ally, in China, a regional competitor that India recognizes you don't want to go to war with them. You want to learn how to peacefully coexist. We put everything, it's like creating an artificial diamond. Normally to create a diamond, it happens over time. It takes a long time to make this diamond. Well, that would have been BRICS if there hadn't been a war.
Yeah.
It's because it's very hard to have all these people come together and have multilateral consensus-driven agreement. It was a nice little forum. They were doing little things and all that stuff, sort of feel good, make you feel good. But then the war came and they said, we have to do things. We have to take this coal and we're going to put it into a pressure cooker and we're going to cook it down. We're going to get a diamond as quick as possible, a high quality artificial diamond. Last year in Johannesburg, in South Africa, BRICS did the impossible. Talked about expansion. In 2019, everybody's talking about Turkey's decision to join BRICS today. In 2019, Turkey said, we want to be part of BRICS. Straight up applied for it. And BRICS said, no, we're not ready for expansion. We haven't solved the basic problems of making the core five work. We can't be bringing in other people. But because of how the West responded against China, Russia, etc., they expanded it. And now Russia's job is to take this expanded BRICS and structure it, to create institutions that allow, on a multilateral basis, collaboration and coordination to take place prior to a BRICS summit. The old summits, people just sort of showed up with their guys, and it was like a week-long a seminar or whatever. No. Now what's happening is more like the G7. If you take a look at the G7 before they have the leaders meetings, they have the economic ministerials, they have the foreign affairs, they have the security, and they work everything out so that when the leaders come together, there's already a plan. They have a strategy of what they want to accomplish. They're not making it up as they go along. BRICS doesn't have that infrastructure. Russia's building it. Take a look at Russia, what Russia has done since the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. They've been running ministerial after ministerial after ministerial. As we speak, there's a foreign minister's security ministerial. Yes, that's right. BRICS is talking about how do we basically, create a Eurasian counterpart to NATO, a structure that protects that which we're trying to build here. 158 nations have signed up to the BRICS, replacement currency concept, de-dollarization. I remember Donald Trump at the debate. I'm going to put tariffs on anybody that dumps the dollar. Well, the whole world's dumping the dollar, Donald. Good luck with that, okay? Good luck with putting tariffs on the entire world.
We thought inflation was bad now. Oof.
Yeah, day late and the dollar short on that one. But BRICS, what the Russians are doing right now is creating a real institution. It will become institutionalized, this concept of multilateral, consensus-driven work. And it's amazing what they've done. I mean, again, the West just seems to be oblivious to it. We don't, again, we've been conditioned not to give the Russians credit for anything. The Russians have mastered the art of diplomacy. Think what I just said. They have institutionalized multilateral consensus building. That's what the United Nations was supposed to be for, but thanks to Americans, again, the vetoes of the Permanent Five, that isn't going to happen. Now you have a situation where you have Russia, China, and India. The three don't always see eye to eye, and yet they're going to come together. The big three are coming together. And then there's going to be, I think, the big five, because you get Erdogan coming in, and Maduro shows up, and suddenly you're looking at, well, Maduro, what? You do know he produces a lot of oil, right? I mean, have people figured that one out yet about Venezuela's economic potential? And now you have Azerbaijan coming in, and suddenly you're looking at, if MBS comes, Lavrov was just in Saudi Arabia because, the invitation was extended to the Saudis last year to join BRICS, but they've sort of been like, I don't know, we're hanging out with the West. Do we want to jump ship? Lavrov came in and reminded Saudi Arabia why it's important to be on the right side of history. And I think MBS is going to show up. So now we're looking at a core level of people that will control global energy. Literally, they control the energy security of the world. Directly and indirectly through the leverage that they can bring to bear on it. They're coming together, not just, like I said, coming together and spend a week, with knee-jerk reactions. There are preparations taking place. There are plans in place. They're falling in. This is a master class in diplomacy. This is the things that the United States used to be able to pull off back when we had diplomats. Back when we knew how to talk to people. Again, you can talk to people when you're comfortable in your own skin. America is, I'm not saying that under Ronald Reagan, America did everything right. We know we didn't. But we at least tried to practice diplomacy, and we weren't scared of our own skin. When we sat down at the table, you may disagree with us, but we were there in good faith. We were there in good faith. We believed what we were saying, and we were enthusiastic in our articulation of it. Today, we're scared of our own shadow. Literally, we're a nation of people that we're not comfortable of who we are. We're not comfortable of where we've been. We're in the process of destroying our own history, which means the foundation of, facts that define who we are and what we are is crumbling. So while the foundation is crumbling, as we redefine who we are as a people, we're expected to sell this now aggressively to the other side, and we don't have any good sales points. So what we do is we criticize them and we attack them. And this is not diplomacy. We're also a nation, again, I'll bring it up, we're addicted to war. Dwight D. Eisenhower warned about this in his farewell address. He said that the military-industrial complex, when paired with Congress, creates a cycle of funding and production that creates this artificial economic stimulus that empowers politically and concentrates economic power and therefore political power in a handful of military-industrial organs that will take over democracy. Well, that's exactly what happened. And when that happens, we are a nation that instead of searching for diplomatic solutions, which requires compromise, I mean, diplomacy is not easy. Diplomacy isn't about always getting your way. Diplomacy is about horse trading, giving up a little bit here, giving up there, finding that nice median, the median, the where everybody comes together and goes, okay, we're good. Everybody can live with this. Yeah. Diplomacy. We don't do that. We dictate outcomes. We say, the hell with you and your consensus. This is the way we want it. Well, we don't want to do that. We're going to sanction you. Do you touch the dollar? We're going to sanction you. Well, maybe I don't want to touch the dollar anymore. Then I'm going to tariff your ass. But then the worst part is, then I'm going to bomb you. That's all we know. Look at our solutions. Show me the last time we went in and did a solution that has, us building infrastructure exclusively. How do we go into Africa? We lead with the military. Ukraine, lead with the military. Every place in the world, we lead with the military. The military is the only solution we have. So our diplomats today wear stars on their shoulders.
Right.
That's the fact. In the Middle East, the most influential people are from Central Command, not the ambassadors. The ambassadors take a second seat to Central Command, who comes in and tells them the way it's going to be, tells the nation states there, because America is now defined by its military. And now we have a military that's in the decline. We can't afford to keep this military up and running. So we don't interface well with people. We've created a leadership vacuum that makes it easier for now BRICS to step in too. That's the other thing. It would be one thing if we can contest BRICS. It would be much more difficult for BRICS to get off the ground if Ronald Reagan's America was there, because Reagan would be going, well, I guess you're going to do that BRICS thing, but we're America and we're the shining city on the hill, and we'd really like and people go, well, America's not that bad. We'll deal with America. We're not ready to jump ship yet. It'd be very difficult. But now the world's looking around saying, now this BRICS thing scares me. It's a little intimidating. We've never tried something like this before, but there's America, the warmongers. Yeah, we're going to do BRICS because we've turned BRICS into a viable alternative. BRICS is real. BRICS is game changing. If Russia is able to pull out this Kazan meeting, the world will never be the same. Literally, never. This is one of those moments. I mean, all you people that are alive today, understand this. This is a huge deal, what's going on. It will change the world. The world will never be the same. There's pre-BRICS and then there's post-BRICS. But this BRICS thing, once BRICS comes alive, the rules-based international order is gone. And that's all any of us who've been alive, that are alive today, have ever known, is the rules-based international order promulgated by an America that insists on being a global hegemon. That's the world we've lived in for the last 70 some odd years. That's about to change. It's a whole new world. I'm not saying it's going to be better, but it's going to be different. And it's going to be, it's going to require a whole new approach. As Americans, this is the biggest problem, is going to be for America to accept the fact that we're no longer the king of the world, that we are one of many, not, number one, that we aren't superior in everything, that there are many places around the world that where they have superior, and people say, well, how could Americans ever? Well, ask yourself this: how has China lived like that? I mean, China, there was a long time where China was number 2, number 3, not number 1.
Or number 10. Yeah, or not even competing with Japan and South Korea. Just
did China roll over and play dead and go, oh, well, we don't exist, we suck? No. China asserted itself, moved on. Russia, they're not number 1 in many things, but they're a proud nation. And because they've they've taken what they have, which is considerable, by the way, and they've leveraged it diplomatically. America could be a world leader, not the world leader, but a world leader, if we just invested in diplomacy. We have good people, we have good ideas, we know how to get things done. If we shut down half of our carrier battle groups, if we stopped wasting money on new nuclear deterrence that we can't afford, doesn't work, if we shut down the nuclear enterprise, if we actually did audits of our military so we didn't have $2 trillion disappearing, we could cut our defense budget by 40%. And we're talking about a nearly $1 trillion defense budget. I could take $400 billion off of that. And if I just took 1% of that and gave it to the State Department and said, run wild, baby, run wild, man, this would be a different world. We'd train good diplomats. We'd have our diplomats out there. We'd beef up our embassies, not to spy on people, but to work with people, to sit down and solve problems together. The way Americans used to roll up our sleeves. We were the problem solvers, baby. We came in and we solved problems. Let's do it again. Let's be that person, because we can. It doesn't mean that we supplant the Chinese, but imagine if the Chinese are in an area of the world where things aren't going great. What if America came in and said, hey, need help? We're not here to push you out. We recognize you're here. Need help? We can help you make doing what you're doing better. In the process, we can get involved too. And China would probably go, if you're sincere, sure, come on in. Let's help us out. Imagine if we live in a world where people said, let's solve these problems together. That's what BRICS is supposed to be, a multilateral, consensus-driven forum. America could be a major player in that if we could ever change the way we think, but we can't do that. America's only about dictating outcomes. We're not about working with people. We're not about sitting back and shutting up and listening. We have to come to the table, be large and in charge, and compel people to bend to our will. And so long as that's our approach to international interfacing, we're going to fail, and that's why we're failing today.
Yeah, and maybe to close on this topic, I mean, so many things that you said. First, this addiction to war, literally leading to the acceleration of BRICS. I used to cover and analyze BRICS and multipolarity before the Ukraine conflict, and certainly there was no expectation in my judgment that BRICS would become as influential now as it is. I mean, it was a conversation, it was an event, it was happening, and it was important, but it wasn't something that was going to move mountains globally. It was really, as you said, Scott, it was a work in progress among countries that saw very little actually eye to eye, other than perhaps benefiting from economic development, which is a very broad concept, a very broad relationship that may have taken generations to really come to fruition. And now we're not even talking about generations. We're just talking about every single year significant changes happening because of these BRICS summits. And what's ironic about it, Scott, is that BRICS has actually had to put a pause on formal expansion because now it is so big that as a consensus organization, and one that has, as you said, very little rules written, now they have to write these rules. They have to understand what they're going to do from here as a block, so to speak. Well, they may not, for lack of a better word, but still with 40 plus countries wanting to join and these big heavy hitters like Turkey wanting to be a bigger part of BRICS, it's no doubt that this summit will lead to, at the very least, some way to incorporate those parties interested in what BRICS is trying to do. So it's a very interesting moment. And when I was in China, lastly, on this note, when you were talking about the potential of U.S. Cooperation, the idea that the U.S. can cooperate on a global basis that isn't attached to war. What was so interesting when I was in China, when I was in Beijing, I had to take a car a few times to get places during the lead up, not even the actual date. I left the day that the Forum on China Africa Cooperation was going to occur. I left it was September 4th. I was on a plane. I was gone. The days leading up to it, all the African leaders were coming in. I think they had actually like a ministerial meeting before the formal before the formal forum, and the traffic was just so bad. Why was it so bad? Well, because China, it wasn't because the national military, the police, or anything like that were marching the streets and making everything so difficult. It was because there was traffic cops everywhere, ensuring that essentially African leaders had the roads. They had the roads. They were that was the priority, was that the African leaders who were coming to this were completely prioritized. I mean, it was almost insane. It was almost as if you go to New York City, the middle of Manhattan, if you had the entirety of Manhattan proper just essentially shut down, the major main roads shut down because African leaders are visiting. Yeah, it never happens. It never, it never happens here at that level because, the United States isn't doing that sort of thing. Sometimes traffic will get bad if Biden.
You brought up an interesting thing about this Chinese African summit. Again, it's one of these things that you remember how I said the West doesn't know how to, intellectually absorb what China's doing in the world today. So, the Belts and Roads Initiative, the standard pushback, and I got this over and over and over again, is it's a Chinese debt trap. It's a Chinese debt trap. Belts and Roads Initiative is not going to work. I mean, I kept saying Belts and Roads. Literally, I had somebody I was working with, and I kept saying, I'd like to write about this. It's a debt trap. I said, have you looked at the infrastructure being built? It's a debt trap. It's a debt trap. The whole world's rejecting it. It's not going to work. Africa, China will never get in Africa. It's a debt trap. If it was a debt trap, the African leaders wouldn't be in China right now. It ain't a debt trap. No. It's how Africa is going to emerge as a global player by developing its infrastructure, because it's working with a country, China, that has decided that it's more important to build ports, roads, and bridges than it is to build military bases and put armed drones in there. And that's the thing. Again, I'm not going to sit here and say the Chinese are perfect. They're not. I'm not going to say that the Chinese never negotiated an unfair deal. They have. But I will say this, over the course of time, the Chinese have rectified their errors. I mean, there's many situations where the nation has come back and said, we just can't do this. China went, oh, okay, well, we're going to forgive you this, we're going to do this, we're going to restructure this, and let's move on. That's just the Chinese they're not in this to take over the world. They're in this to make a better economic situation for China and for the people, because China understands that this isn't colonialism. You can't just suck the resources out that the nations that are, you want to build the good supply chains, and all this kind of stuff. It's oversimplification, but I just, again, want to reemphasize the point that if all the Belts and Roads Initiative did was create debt trap, you wouldn't have Chinese traffic cops stopping the traffic in Chinese cities to clear the roads for the African leaders that are pouring into China to participate in this forum, because they know this is the best path forward. When was the last time we had a whole bunch of African leaders come to the United States for something like this? Wouldn't it be nice to have traffic cops shutting down San Francisco so that, African leaders could come in? We could have this great summit on how America is going to participate in the infrastructure revolution of Africa. No, we just got our asses kicked out of a $110 million airbase in Niger because we suck, because all we offer is war. We don't know anything other than war. If you don't yield to our warmongering ways, we will what? Well, we got kicked out by Niger. Then we tried to go to Chad. We lied to them, and the Chadian Air Force went, what are you doing here? That's not part of our status support. And they kicked us out there. The world's waking up to the fact that the United States, we're just a bunch of uniforms. And and the uniforms end up costing the nations lives and resources at a time when the nations need to make the standard of living of their citizens better and to maximize the economic potential of their resources. We don't think like that in America. We just want to put a base in, put drones in, and fire hellfires at people.